Hello again, welcome back to episode number 28 of Travel Talk. Today's episode is the last full day in San Francisco, and we'd be visiting Alcatraz, which is a famous former United States penitentiary. It's been in a lot of films and TV programs recently. It was famous, of course, for being the place where America sent its most violent and dangerous criminals, and especially so because it was the place where they kept Al Capone. And if you don't know who Al Capone is, you should Google him or watch The Untouchables, because that's a very good film. And it's got Sean Connery in it, who was also in The Rock, which was set at Alcatraz with Nicolas Cage. So, you know, just linking some films there for you. So yeah, we'd be going to Alcatraz. Our ferry to Alcatraz wouldn't be leaving until 2 o'clock. So on this day, we had a lovely lay-in, which is always positive. Recovered a little bit from the previous day's walking to and from the Golden Gate Bridge. So yeah, like I say, we got up about 10, headed out the hostel about 11, decided because it wasn't raining and the weather wasn't too bad to save a little bit of money and walk down to Pier 33, which is where the ferry goes from. Along the way, we stopped off and had some brunch, which was an English breakfast, which was actually quite nice in comparison to some English breakfasts we had in America, and especially one that will be coming up in a future episode in LA, which was the worst English breakfast I've ever had in my life, and it came from an English pub. So it's very hit and miss food in America sometimes, but you know, it was nice that day. So yeah, we had the brunch, headed down to Pier 33, got there far too early because we arrived at about 12:30 and the ferry didn't go till 2. So we had a brief hour of just walking around shops and looking at souvenirs, went and saw the seals again. And yeah, came back to Pier 33 about 1:30. Queued up for the ferry. Like I say, we'd already got our tickets in a previous episode. I think it was 2 or 3 days before. Got our tickets, we were lined up, and we were on the ferry probably by about 1:45 sort of time, which gave us plenty of time to, you know, sit down and get ready before the ferry left at 2. So yeah, we were sat there cruising along on this little ferry. Got some lovely photos of San Francisco on the ferry, which was behind us, and Alcatraz, which was in front of us. So that was really cool. Arrived at Alcatraz just after 2 o'clock. It takes about 15 minutes in between the pier and Alcatraz itself, so we left a little bit early, I think, because everyone was queued up was there, so which was good. The first building you get off and see. English, it's not my first language apparently. First building you get off and see is a former prison block that has been turned into kind of a tourist information / souvenir shop sort of thing. And you get a talk by a park ranger. Obviously now Alcatraz is still owned by the US government, but it's been turned into a national park as such and a historical site, so it's looked after by park rangers, and he just kind of wanted to run people down about what you can and can't do, what was and wasn't open, and what kind of food and drinks they had on offer to the public. So that took about 5 minutes. He did ask us not to steal any animals, which was a shame because I really wanted to steal a pelican, but that's unfortunate. So yeah, after that little talk, we headed straight off to the main cell block because it's where you get a guided tour. It's like an audio tour, you put headphones on, get a little audio device, and that lasts about 45 minutes, and that's kind of where you get all your information about Alcatraz from. So you headed straight there, grabbed the audio tour, and just basically started heading straight around. We wanted to the weather wasn't great the day we went. It was really cold and grey and murky, so we were going to be there a couple of hours, so we wanted to get the main thing done first, and then we could, you know, fit anything else in we wanted. So yeah, we were inside Alcatraz. What strikes you about Alcatraz straight away is the sheer size of it, and the idea that criminals, I know it obviously hasn't been used as a penitentiary for many years now, but to think that all of these dangerous criminals were once there and once lived there for up to 40, 50 life sentence sort of years, then it's very surreal to actually be there. And obviously you hear a lot about Alcatraz in like history and films, television shows, and obviously it's bigger in American culture than it is in English culture, but you still know what it is. And yeah, to finally be there was really, really amazing to finally be there. So yeah, the first thing you see as you go into Alcatraz is the first set of cells, which are called Broadway, and as you go up Broadway you take a right onto Michigan, which isn't something you can do too often, so Alcatraz makes these things happen, it's magical. So yeah, we did that. From the cells, you head to the solitary confinement area. Let me put this in perspective. The cells themselves, the normal cells, were probably the size of like an average bathroom, and they obviously contained like a bed, a toilet, maybe like a cupboard, and whatever personal effects the prisoners had. The solitary confinement area, imagine a wardrobe, not the one behind me. That's basically the size of it, and it was dark, it had no natural light, and they got like meals a day and no social interaction at all. So it was obviously for the worst of the worst people, for solitary confinement. But yeah, I would not want to be in there. Like Steve McQueen in The Great Escape when he's throwing the ball against the wall when he's in solitary confinement. Even that looked better than Alcatraz. So yeah, don't go in solitary confinement. It's terrible. From solitary, you head on to the library, and from there you go on to the guard security room, which is basically you learn about the guards, kind of their patterns, what they did on a general day, what responsibilities they had, which is pretty interesting itself. Then you head outside, you take some more photos of looking out onto San Francisco, and you realise, even though it's a 15-minute journey, you realise you're still pretty close to the mainland. So that must have been quite interesting living in San Francisco when the penitentiary was actually in full use and you had dangerous criminals kind of across the water from you. So I can imagine that was pretty interesting, you know, a little bit. But, ooh, look, mummy, it's Al Capone. Ooh. That would be quite funny. So yeah, you go back inside, go back through the guards' quarters, you see their uniforms on the walls in mannequins, and head out of there onto Times Square. And they did seem to have a real knack of naming things after like US landmarks and places like Times Square, Broadway, Michigan. There was a couple of others as well I couldn't actually remember, but yeah, it's pretty interesting the way they name things. It keeps I don't know, keeps it socially intact, I suppose. Alcatraz, very social, unless you're in solitary confinement. So yeah, so Times Square is basically another set of cell blocks, but it leads onto the main dining hall. And you kind of get a look into what the kitchen looked like and all that sort of thing. And considering how big Alcatraz is, the dining hall was tiny. So I can't imagine it was that fun trying to eat in Alcatraz. I mean, I can't imagine it was much fun being in Alcatraz, but eating at the same time must have been so much of a pain in the arse. So yeah, we did that. That was very interesting. That lasted about 45 minutes or so. Yeah, it's really good. You learnt a lot. You saw things you wouldn't naturally see on like a documentary, a film, a television show. You learnt about Al Capone, and yeah, it was really, really well worth the money. And if you ever end up in San Francisco, go to Alcatraz and go and do the tour, because you learn a lot from it, and you feel better for doing it, and you will kick yourself if you miss out doing it. Put it that way. So yeah, after about 2.5 hours there, we jumped back on the next ferry, headed back to Pier 33, waved goodbye to Alcatraz. Been some fond memories, it's been a really good day, and headed back home basically. So we jumped on the cable car, headed back up. We couldn't be bothered to walk because it was cold. It was very cold and it was raining, I think, when we came back, so yeah, can't really blame us. On the way back, we stopped off for some Thai food again. My love for Thai food / Chinese food is pretty much always going to be amazing, because I cannot stress you enough how much food I can eat. I love food, but Thai and Chinese food are amazing. So yeah, if you ever want to woo me, Thai and Chinese food, there you go. It's like 3 steps to me. So yeah, we had the Thai food, but then we had to head back to the room, because unfortunately the next day we would be heading off to LA, which would be A, the final stop on our American leg, B, the final Greyhound bus we would take in America, and C would be us waving goodbye to San Francisco, which had been amazing to be at, to be fair. We enjoyed being in the hostel, we'd enjoyed Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, and just genuinely being there. I'd never ever thought that I'd ever get to visit these places, so to tick that off my list, and then be heading on after that to LA, and then on to Fiji and Australia, and it was incredible to think about. Obviously it was incredible at the time, but it's incredible to think back to now, because now I'm back in sunny old Essex where it rains every day. But yeah. So yeah, like I say, next episode will be travelling to LA, and then I'll probably do the next episode, because there's quite a bit in the next episode, even though it's just a travel episode. So that'll be by itself, and then probably, I think we were in LA for 4 full days, so probably 2 days each, just covering that. And yeah, this is where I'm going to leave this episode off. Like I say, LA's the next episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. You can leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, don't tell your friends, doesn't really bother me. I just enjoy making these and putting them out there. If one person watches them, I'm happy. If a million people watch them, I'm happy. You know, I just like making my little story public, and yeah, telling people about my travels. Really, I enjoy talking about it. So yeah, I guess I'll catch you next episode. See ya.